production of Ruckus is made possible through the generous support of Dave and Jamie Cummings, the Hartwig family, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to Ruckus, our weekly food for thought fight over the news of the day and the trends of the times. I'm Mike Shannon. The Ruckettes join me shortly. Our topics this week: BNIM may say BYE to KC. Governor Brownback says take that to his media critics. And presidential hopefuls learn you can't take New Hampshire for granted. Plus roast and toast. But we start with our interview segment and commemorate Black History Month by welcoming a legendary figure in Kansas City's civic and governmental life, Alvin Brooks. Brooks, who once served on the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department, now sits on the police board overseeing the department's operations. Brooks is a former member of the Kansas City, Missouri City Council, runner-up in the 2007 mayor's race, and the founder of the Ad Hoc Group Against Crime. Our guest will take part in a panel discussion at the Plaza Library on February 25th, discussing a pivotal moment in local Black history, desegregating the Swope Park swimming pool. That takes us back to the 1950s, so let's start there. Al Brooks, welcome to Ruckus. It's great to see you again.
Good to be with you. Thank you.
The year of this event was 1952. Swope Park pool was open, but only for white people.
That's right.
There was a lawsuit. A judge ruled that the pool had to be integrated. The effort was undertaken. What happened?
Well, then, after that occurred, of course, I was a cadet in the academy at the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department.
The only black cadet, I believe.
Of 29, and it's hard to find me on that photo. But so it was about August when I was assigned out there by Major Cliff Warren.
It was thought that you go there and you would keep everything peaceful and calm.
But because the majority of the folks that were swimming at that time were black, and just a few whites, and then it began to pick up near the end of the summer. So, but it's interesting about the pool. Now, the pool was open based on the appeal and the judge ruling that it had to be integrated. But there was still segregation in terms of Swope Park. We could not rent, African Americans could not rent bicycles, you could not rent horses, you couldn't rent any boats. And there was a segment of the park, Swope Park, where if you got beyond that point, it was shelter house number 5, and it was called Watermelon Hill. And if you wandered any place else, they had mounted police, as I remember at the time, around, and they would run you off.
Well, the pool was finally closed, was it not?
Well, no, it was open. I mean, it closed, but when it was open, it didn't close again, to the best of my knowledge, because that year, 1954. And we talk about 1954. So after that time, of course, 1964, you had public accommodations, which all of those facilities were open to everyone, regardless of race, ethnicity, that kind of thing.
Well, this panel discussion, you're going to have some distinguished colleagues. Judge Sachs, who was the clerk for the judge who made the ruling in this case.
Yes.
Thurgood Marshall Jr., son of the first African-American Supreme Court Justice, UMKC law professor David Achtenberg, and the moderator is going to be Steve Kraske of KCUR-FM, which is one of the sponsors, along with the Federal Court Historical Society, Urban League, and the Kansas City Public Library. Also, you're going to be speaking to a group of young people soon from the Hyman Brand Hebrew Academy and the University Academy. They're going to the South to see some of the historic civil rights locations like Selma and Montgomery. What are you going to be saying to these young people? You're going to be talking about the alliance, I think, between Jews and African Americans and the civil rights struggle in Kansas City and elsewhere.
This is all in the heading of Beyond Belief.
Beyond Belief is a documentary coming to KCPT in June.
And this is going to be, I think it's a great opportunity to some 40 students. I think 20 from the Hebrew Academy and 20 from the University Academy. And I think the main thing there, when they're going to these civil rights sites in the South, I think what I'm going to do is kind of deal with the timeline of history in terms of bigotry and racism. I think that the thing here is that you have Jewish kids and African American, I suspect most of them African American kids who come from a Christian background. And of course, there are those of us who have been saying all along that there needs to be a connection between the various faiths, and as well as cultures, as well as all those things that make for a good human being. And I'm going to kind of deal with that timeline and show a parallel between Jewish and African American histories. Of course, Jewish history goes back to the beginning of time. And I want the young folks to begin to think about that. And I'm hopeful that after this trip, that they will continue to have relationships. And I just wish that so many kids can have the opportunity to come together, to learn about each other. I think that's what the future is all about, regardless of what we do and what we say. The future is how much we know about each other and respect each other, and under the one supreme being. And that's the kind of thing I'm
And both
talking
African Americans and Jews have a shared history
very
of
much so.
slavery. I got to stop you there because we're out of time. I will mention that this documentary is called Beyond Belief. It's going to be here on KCPT in June, and people can go to our website and get more details, kcpt.org.
Thank you.
That is Kansas City, Missouri Police Board member and longtime civic activist Alvin Brooks. Now let's meet the panel and start a ruckus. Steve Rose is a Johnson County civic leader and a Kansas City Star columnist. Gwen Grant is president and CEO of the Urban League in Kansas City. Lisa Johnston is a political consultant and columnist. And Crosby Kemper III is director of the Kansas City Library System and host of KCPT's Meet the Past program. Well, love it or hate it, TIF, tax increment financing, giving tax dollars to business, not government, is a regular part of Kansas City area news. TIFs are supposed to generate business development in blighted areas, making possible projects that otherwise would not take form. Critics, however, say the purpose is often ignored and tax breaks are essentially guaranteed. BNIM Architecture hoped to receive a TIF to renovate a building in the Crossroads District owned by developer Shirley Hellsberg. Threats from angry taxpayers to force the issue to a public vote caused BNIM to give up and seek another site for its planned headquarters. In a Star News story, one prominent critic of TIFs says the person to blame for not getting this Crossroads issue resolved is Mayor Sly James. Fortuitously, that critic is on our panel this week. So, Crosby, what should Mayor James have done?
Well, I hate to criticize the mayor anymore, but
you will.
The problem here is that the city's, as I also was quoted saying, has a chaos going on in terms of incentive policy, and the mayor's made it worse. He fired Phil Glynn for one vote on the TIF commission. He retracted his offer to the taxing jurisdictions from last year of a 50% cap on the pilots, the money they take from us, and gave us a 10% with a Swiss cheese option with holes in it so big that the city could basically do whatever they want to do, which is always to fund developers. And so on the Hellsberg deal, the Hellsberg BNIM deal, the taxing jurisdictions came to an agreement with BNIM in particular and with the city. But the mayor then kept retracting and never showing up at a meeting.
Were the protesters willing to compromise, though, and have payment in lieu of taxes?
They were willing to do a deal on tax incentive policy generally. The mayor wasn't.
Right.
But
Be
not
real
on
clear.
that.
Not
But not
on
on
that
that
deal. Let's
deal,
make
right?
that real
Did they
clear.
ever say they would accept that deal for the
Yeah.
for BNIM?
They said it
did
to
not.
me. I had a conversation with Jennifer Wolfsey and with Andrea from the teachers union about that after a school district meeting, and yeah, they would have. But what they knew and what the mayor gave them every reason to believe is that the city was not going to come through with an overall policy on taxes.
Now, do you have a different understanding?
The real problem here is that the petitioners are sick and tired of TIF projects in areas that are not blighted and are not, they have no further need of abatements. So that's what the real issue is. So all of this talk about there was this negotiation about getting pilots off of the project, we're really falling on deaf ears. So I don't know where this notion was that they were going to have a compromise, maybe with the taxing jurisdictions, but not with the general public, the residents of the Kansas City, Missouri, of the school district who brought forward this petition.
Yeah, they want
policy.
incentive
They
policy.
want
The mayor
policy
doesn't.
changes, and until they make policy changes, the city's going to have a problem bringing forward additional TIF projects in areas that are not distressed, that are not blighted. And so the city really does need to dig in their heels and address this problem.
Lisa, let me read you a definition of TIF.
Sure.
It encourages development of blighted, substandard, and economically underutilized areas that would not be developed without public assistance. You ever been to the Crossroads?
Oh, I have.
Do you think the Crossroads meets any of those criteria?
You know, I really understand the objections that are being raised to TIF in the Crossroads, because I don't think that there's a strong argument to be made that the Crossroads is now an area of blight. However, I think it is disappointing that we couldn't have some kind of compromise. It would have been nice for BNIM to be able to come into the area, and you have to wonder, are we cutting off our nose to spite our face? I understand the objection, but it would have been better if a compromise could have been reached.
This warehouse, which Shirley Hellsberg bought, was itself blighted. I mean, it's sitting there complete. It's been vacant now for over a decade, and it needs help. And nobody's probably going to come in and just take it.
Every vacant building in Kansas City should be subsidized.
I don't think the Crossroads fits in with quote like the Plaza.
You're saying every vacant
well, what you're saying is that the only development we should have is east of Troost, and that's the only time that we should.
I never said that.
It has to be totally blighted.
I never said that.
Well, I think this is a hollow
I think
victory.
the opponents are saying they want to see work done east of Troost and another seriously blighted areas.
That creates an equitable allocation of tax abatements across the city. And when you look at the Crossroads, which is a TIF project that has spanned more than 10 or 15 years, I don't know exactly how long, they have revitalized that district enough that it should be able to go on from here without further abatements.
Steve, excuse me, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say that's a reasonable objection. It's just we have to ask ourselves, what are we gaining when we lose the entire project?
You're going to lose it, and you may lose it to Johnson County.
Well, I was going to say, don't I recall a column you wrote not long ago saying the BNI deal should be approved, and if not, Johnson County might be the beneficiary.
Or another suburb. I mean, I don't think that they said they're going to stay in the metropolitan area. They didn't say they're going to stay in Kansas City, Missouri, and they may not want to move east of Troost. I mean, they may not want to go to an area that's blighted by your definition, but they may want to go to an area where the tax subsidies make it feasible for them to stay here and to do the kind of development that they want to do.
This was going to be the most expensive building in the Central Business District. They're going to pay the highest rent in the Central Business District. What is the public policy good of having the library, the school district, the mental health levy, community college students, the developmentally disabled subsidizing the highest rent in the Central Business District?
And even the cost of housing in the Crossroads is extremely high.
Steve,
so this area is economically fine.
There was a compromise that was offered up that probably should have been accepted. And I think it would have been a fair deal.
What the compromise is address the policy problems, and then I think you'll get more willingness
Can we
to
have a compromise that it's time to move on to the next topic? Kansas Governor Sam Brownback, the recipient of much media criticism, especially in the Kansas City Star, is answering his critics with a robust response appearing in print last weekend. Brownback claims the state is strong, the economy good, a record number of Kansans working, and earnings are up. In short, says the GOP governor, Kansas is strong and Kansas is growing. The next day, the Star responded with an editorial saying that without a dramatic correction, Kansas will continue to spiral downward. The Star points to mismanagement and money woes, misplaced priorities, a depleted transportation fund, and a state mental hospital system with staff shortages. The paper says it is crucial to recruit candidates who will help reverse the damage of recent years. Steve, do you see that recruitment beginning to take place in Johnson County?
Well, there actually is some recruitment going on, but I will tell you that the problem is that a moderate Republican in Johnson County today has a very, very tough road to hoe. It's south of 435. The turnout in a primary is only about 12%. And to really have a decent campaign and to have any kind of hope of beating a conservative Republican, you have to have a turnout of around 30 to 35%. In addition, there's a lot of people that don't want to have these nasty lying postcards sent out about them and are intimidated about the kind of campaigns that have been run in Kansas.
Lisa, you've run for office in Kansas at the state and the federal level. You giving any thought to running this year?
I will not be running in the 2016 cycle, but I would like to echo a lot of what Steve was saying. It's a challenge, and in 2012 we saw the Republican cannibalism, essentially, where they went after the moderates. And I have to say, quite frankly, that the take that the governor is putting out there is a load of bull. The state is practically broke. We've just learned that they are now going to not be paying into capers because they need operating cash. It's really a sad state of affairs, and I will come on this program and roast myself and everyone else who has criticized him if this current tax structure ever creates a situation where we have enough revenue, and it's just not going to happen.
Crosby, it seems to me Governor Brownback does not answer his critics very often. He's been offered opportunities to be on Ruckus and has declined. Do you think he does himself some good when he responds like he has?
I think he needs to work on it, you bet. But I think there is, he ought to come out because there's sort of hysteria versus the facts. The problem with the facts in this is it doesn't really benefit Brownback, and it doesn't really benefit the moderate view of the world that things are going to hell in a handbasket. The state isn't broke at all. It has a decline in revenue from projections and projected spending, but it's got a healthy economy with a very low unemployment rate and real economic growth. Its per pupil expenditure is right in the middle of the United States, and the United States is at the top of per pupil expenditure in the world for education. So, things aren't terrible. On the other hand, the tax policy hasn't worked the way they expect it to work. So they do have these Rube Goldberg things, the patches and duct tape way of governing, which is not a great way of governing.
Wouldn't Brownback be better off, Gwen, if he would come out and say, I've made some mistakes?
I think so.
Here are a couple of areas I'm going to see what we can do to correct them?
Absolutely, because clearly he's made lots of mistakes. And, if you want to talk about the funding formula for the school, I think the ruling of the Supreme Court, Kansas Supreme Court ruling today, speaks to one of those mistakes of that legislature and under Brownback's leadership. So, what amazes me about Kansas is getting back to people running. I mean, they had an opportunity to address this problem in the last election and re-elected Brownback in spite of the fact that the policies were having a really negative impact on the economy of the state and on the funding of public education.
So Steve, the Kansas Supreme Court issued a ruling this Thursday morning as we're recording this program for airing in the evening, and we don't know all the details, but what do you think the essence of it is?
Well, the essence is that the legislature decided to throw out the school formula that it had and to substitute it with what is supposed to have been a temporary fix, which are block grant funding to the school districts. And it's really freezing them at the levels at which, at the time when the block grants were issued, a lot of the legislators now have sort of fallen in love with it because it holds down spending of schools. And they've sort of been saying, well, we might get to this, not this year, but maybe next year. Well, the Supreme Court said, no, this is not constitutional, and you need to fix this by June 30th. So you got to give them credit. The court at least gave the legislature a little bit of wiggle room so they can get this thing fixed, and there won't be, hopefully, a constitutional crisis.
But block grant financing has to be tossed out. Is that your understanding?
Block grant is out. Yeah.
Oh, so is this discussion. It's over. And as we said at the beginning of the broadcast, you can't take New Hampshire for granted. The granite state tends to surprise, and this time the results of the first in the nation presidential primary were good news for some, painful rejection for others. For Democrats, the results were about as expected. A major win for Senator Bernie Sanders over former First Lady, U.S. Senator and Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. On the GOP side, a huge victory for Donald Trump and a second-place finish for Governor John Kasich of Ohio. So let's start, however, with the Democrats. What do the New Hampshire results tell us about the rest of this campaign, Lisa?
Well, the New Hampshire result totally changes the complexion of the race. We now have an actual race, and the Clinton campaign has a number of things to think about. The exit polling was really interesting. 91% of Democrats who value honesty and trustworthiness voted for Bernie Sanders.
Imagine that.
Yes. And so the Clinton campaign needs to address some of these perception issues and needs to get a message that's more than, I'm Hillary, I have a breadth of experience, and I'll work hard and do a good job. She needs more than that. That worked when she was 40 or 50 points ahead, but not anymore.
Do you think Sanders' momentum will continue or can continue?
I think it can continue. I think he obviously is still the underdog, but I think that this will favor him. We have to remember that back in 2008, prior to Barack Obama beating Hillary Clinton, she was really leading in South Carolina and leading among African Americans. But when that victory happened, everything swung in his direction. And there is a possibility that Bernie could also gain momentum that will help him in South Carolina and other states.
Bernie's making a play to get the African American vote.
He's making a play, yes.
You think he'll have any success?
Well, I think he will have some success, yes. But I think it's important to note, too, that neither Iowa nor New Hampshire has been pretty much been that predictors of presidents. So we have a long way to go.
Well, New Hampshire has been.
Well, not if you really
Not
look back
always,
at the numbers that Clinton and who else? One other. That's it. 2. Out of however many primaries they've had, only 2. So the record is not that great. But what's more important is, yes, Bernie Sanders is courting the African American vote, and he will pick up probably some more momentum in that area if the Clinton campaign does not regroup and become because I think they've been taking.
We got to move quickly here because we're running short on time. We want to get to the Republicans, but very fast. Why are women not voting for Hillary?
Well, I think that Hillary has lost touch with the younger, the millennials and younger African American women as a whole.
Women under 60 voted for Sanders.
I think assuming that they're going to support her simply because she's female and bringing that narrative to her campaign has been a huge mistake. I think what Bernie Sanders brings is a lot more enthusiasm, a lot more talk about we as opposed to I, and that's another problem that that Secretary Clinton has. She's focusing more on her experience as opposed to connecting with the people.
Before we move to the Republicans, a quick moment during the campaign, maybe the best moment, Senator Sanders on Saturday Night Live with Larry David, who often does an impression of Senator Sanders. They're aboard a sinking ship, and they learn that women and children are being taken overboard first, and here's what happened.
I am so sick of the 1% getting this preferential treatment. Enough is enough. We need to unite and work together if we're all going to get through this.
Sounds like socialism to me.
Democratic socialism.
All right, how about the Republican Party? The results in New Hampshire: Trump, Kasich, Cruz, Bush, Rubio, Carson. What's ahead?
Well, what's ahead, we're going to find out in South Carolina. I don't think Kasich is going to be able to keep it going. He did everything. He threw the whole kitchen sink at New Hampshire, and the polling shows him only right now at around 2%. Now, he may have increased that because of his momentum out of New Hampshire, but I think the second place is going to be the question because Trump, by all the polling, is way ahead in South Carolina. And he's the one to stop. There's no question about it. I think that what's at play here is whether or not the fragmentation of the moderates is going to continue or whether some of these people are going to get out and have some coalescing around one candidate to keep Trump from getting this nomination.
Fiorina and Christie have already gotten out. Crosby, in 20 seconds, is Rubio through? He had a bad debate last weekend.
He had a bad debate and really shot himself in the foot. But this is a circular firing squad of Republicans that only benefits the reality TV show clown Donald Trump. And so I don't know where it goes, but I think it's really bad for the Republican Party. I would disagree with Steve about it being about the moderates. I think it's about finding a real conservative who can stand up to Donald Trump, who's not even really a Republican.
Ed Rollins, who used to work for President Reagan, very knowledgeable about politics, said yesterday, in this election, forget history. Doesn't apply anymore.
Right.
Yeah,
now it is time for Roast and Toast, where the Ruckettes offer effusive applause or loud guffaws to people and events in the news, and we start with Steve Rose.
Well, I'd like, in the segue from the conversation we were just having, I'd like to roast Jeb Bush because he's the only one on the planet who thinks he has a chance. He happens to have a lot of money, which is keeping him in, but it's hurting. He is going to, if he continues this, he's going to elect Donald Trump. He needs to get out, and he needs to get out immediately.
Crosby.
So I'd roast the civic community and to the extent it is a community in Kansas City for the chaos on tax incentives and economic development. We don't have economic development in Kansas City. We have a very low economic growth rate. We're losing jobs in the business core, and we have a 28% vacancy rate in real estate, and yet we still subsidize buildings, endlessly taking money from the poorer parts of the community, the working poor, and giving it to the most profitable corporations and wealthy developers. This is the worst economic development policy in the United States.
Ms. Grant?
I'm roasting the city of Ferguson for reneging on a settlement agreement that it reached with the Department of Justice that would have addressed allegations of widespread police misconduct. And again, the city of Ferguson is placing a higher value on its finances than the rights and freedom of its residents. It is highly likely that the cost of litigation will be far higher than implementation of the consent decree.
Lisa.
My roast is for Iowa Democratic Party Chairwoman Dr. Andy McGuire, who recently has resisted a comprehensive review of the Iowa caucus and has refused to release the raw vote totals as was done in previous cycles. Iowa Democrats deserve to know the results were accurate, and they should know whether or not the popular support differed from the caucus result. This process was a mess, and we absolutely should not be awarding delegates by something as arbitrary as a coin toss.
And finally, here is a toast to the Truman Good Neighbor Award Foundation of Kansas City for selecting Senator John McCain as its recipient this year. Now, this is a good organization, and the annual luncheon event in May is one that my wife and I faithfully attend. This year will be especially gratifying because it will be the first time in 5 years the honoree will be a Republican. And so that is Ruckus for this week. We're back next Thursday at 7. Now for the Ruckettes and the crew, I'm Mike Shannon saying thanks very much for watching and good night.